paradrama tales.
Sorry, we'll celebrate another time. Something came up, my family texted. As I sat alone at my promotion dinner, a $1,780 tab, a centerpiece gathering dust and empty seats. What happens when the people you love vanish at the very moment you need them most? I remember how meticulously I planned that evening. My favorite navy blazer hung just so on the back of my bedroom door, the sleek dress shoes polished until they shone, and the reservation at the Riverside Bistro, set for exactly 7:30 p.m. I had pictured the warm glow of string lights overhead, the clink of toasting glasses, and my family's proud smiles as I recounted how I finally earned that promotion. As I stepped through the restaurant's door, every expectation felt tangible. The scent of garlic and rosemary danced in the air. The hostess guided me to a candlelit table dressed for 6, and I could almost hear my mom's boisterous laugh announcing, "That's my child!" I slid into my seat, smoothing the crisp tablecloth, and imagined the way my father would pull out my chair, while my sister teased me about becoming the boss. I took a breath, letting the anticipation settle like sweet champagne in my chest, and thought about the sacrifices I'd made. Late nights perfecting presentations, skipping weekend getaways to hit targets, and forgoing unplugged weekends to craft strategies that landed me this new title. Every PowerPoint deck, every client pitch, every moment of doubt that I pushed through seemed worth it as I waited for the door to swing open with the joyful arrival of my parents and siblings. Instead, I watched the empty chairs around me, as silent as the hush that fell over my heart. With each passing minute, the waiter's sympathetic glances became more frequent. "Can I get you anything else while you wait?" he asked, voice gentle. I forced a polite shake of my head, mumbled, "Just the water, thank you," and smiled tight enough to crack. My phone buzzed with a family group text notification. "Sorry, we'll celebrate another time." Something came up. No explanation, no, "I'm so sorry." Just a cold string of words that drifted through the air and landed like lead in my stomach. I stared at the glowing screen, willing the apology to appear, but only saw the blinking cursor urging me to reply. My mouth dried as the waiter returned with a refill, whispering, "Take your time." I felt older in that moment, as if the empty space beside me had aged me overnight. The promise of celebration hung in the thick restaurant air like an unpopped balloon, full of color but able to be emptied with one careless poke. Under soft Edison bulbs, I sat alone, my dreams laid out on that table in the form of appetizers I no longer wanted to taste, and the echo of promises my family never intended to keep. I touched the polished stem of my wine glass and found that I couldn't raise it in a toast. I had no one to salute. In that pause, I realized those perfect plans had been nothing but air. When the somber waiter delivered the check, I slid my card across without a word, each step of my walk to the exit feeling heavier than the last. Outside, the city lights blurred into tears in my eyes, and I understood. Dreams on the table and promises in the air are weightless until someone shows up to claim them. When the final shimmer of the birthday candles had long since faded from my childhood memories, I never imagined I would sit alone at a table meant for celebration. But there I was, cradling a half-empty glass of Pinot Noir, as if it held the warmth my family refused to share. The waiter hovered at the edge of my periphery, each sympathetic glance a mirror of my own mounting despair. Around me, perfectly folded napkins and sparkling silverware gleamed under soft pendant lights, mocking the echo of my unspoken hopes. My heart pounded in sync with distant laughter from neighboring tables, each burst of conversation a reminder that life was moving on without me. When the breadbasket arrived, fresh sourdough, still steaming, I offered my thanks through a tight smile, but the crust cracked under my fingertips like the fragile shell of my dreams. I tore a piece and chewed slowly, tasting only salt and disappointment. Memories of my promotion announcement replayed in my mind, the excited hug from my mom, the proud pat on the back from my dad, the teasing grin from my sister. I'd envisioned that moment extending into that evening, with their voices lifting mine in triumph. Instead, the only voice I heard was the dull hum of the extractor in the open kitchen, where chefs plated masterpieces that would never taste as bittersweet as my solitude. My phone buzzed again. Another family message sent hours ago, still unread by anyone but me. "Sorry, something came up. We'll reschedule." No follow-up plan, no heart emoji, just a hollow promise floating in digital space. My chest tightened, as if someone had placed a fist there and squeezed until all the air leaked out. I pressed my palm against the cool stem of my wine glass, willing my pulse to slow, willing my eyes to stay dry. A soft chime from the table's service button startled me. Another refill? Another chance to pretend this was normal? I shook my head, not trusting my voice to remain steady. When the check arrived in its leather folder, I traced the embossed logo absent-mindedly, then slipped my card inside without a word. The total, $1,780. A cruel tally of loneliness. Rising to leave, I felt every patron's gaze lock onto me. I could almost hear their questions. Where are they? Why are you here alone? The restaurant's front door felt heavier than it should as I pushed through, and the cold night air slapped my cheeks awake. My footsteps on the cobblestone echoed down the empty street, each click of my shoes a punctuation mark in a sentence I could not write. In the glow of passing street lamps, I unwrapped a piece of bread in my pocket, the faint smell of garlic reminding me of the meal I never shared. I knew it wasn't just dinner I had lost. It was the belief that I mattered to the people who were supposed to matter most to me. And as I climbed into my car, the engine's rumble a lonely lullaby, I realized the only celebration left that night would be the one I held for myself, the quiet determination that I would never again wait alone at a table set for others' dreams. I pulled into my driveway under the glow of my headlights, heart still pounding from the empty chair dinner, and reached for my phone without thinking. The screen lit up with a flood of notifications. I braced myself and tapped the family group chat. There it was, 3 photos side by side, each one more painful than the last. My mom's beaming face stood beside my dad's proud smile. My sister's arm draped around my brother's shoulder like a victory banner, and between them gleamed the glossy paint of his brand new SUV. The caption read, "Proud parents celebrating Jake's new car," and below it, a cascade of congratulations from aunts, uncles, cousins, everyone but me. In that moment, the world went quiet. I stared at the polished grill, the unwarranted pride, and the cruel irony that the very family who bailed on my promotion dinner had gathered to toast his latest purchase. My chest constricted with a mix of rage and heartbreak so intense I nearly dropped my phone. Instead, I slipped the key fob back into my pocket and sank into the driver's seat. The engine's hum, a soft backdrop to my thoughts, turning over and over. They couldn't spare me 1 hour, but they'll splurge on his new ride. My fingers trembled as I unlocked my banking app. I'd set up that $2,300 rent transfer weeks ago without thinking twice. It was always easier to hit approve and move on. Tonight, it felt like signing away my dignity. With a few taps, I canceled the transfer. The confirmation pinged, and a cold sense of relief washed over me as if I'd finally reclaimed a piece of myself. But the night was young, and I wasn't done. Next, I navigated to the cards I'd co-signed for my sister: gas card, grocery card, emergency card, tiny golden rectangles that had felt like symbols of trust, but now felt like shackles. One by one, I froze them with a single swipe, watching each card's status change from active to blocked. The app display: stern warnings, contact issuing bank, immediate action required. I didn't care. I'd tired of bailing them out, of believing their empty apologies. I needed this moment, my first act of self-preservation in years. The last step beckoned from my desk drawer, a plain white envelope marked simply, "Open together." I grabbed it and climbed back into the car, letting the night air clear my head as I drove to my family's house. The neighborhood was silent, Christmas lights dusting roofs like frost, but the world inside that home shone bright with misguided joy. I parked at the curb and walked to the doorstep, the envelope heavy in my hand. Without knocking, I dropped it on their welcome mat, a quiet declaration that the old rules no longer applied. I turned away before their laughter or anger could reach me, retreating into my car where the leather seat cradled my back and the steering wheel steadied my grip. As I drove back, the sound of sleet tapping the windshield reminded me that winter wasn't just a season. It was the state of my heart tonight. No guilt, no tears, only a firm knowledge that I would never again feed their party. The envelope waited behind their door like a question they'd have to answer together. What happens when the bank runs dry and the silence finally speaks? I woke to the relentless vibration of my phone buzzing against the nightstand. Each missed call a spike of heat in my chest. 78 notifications, and counting. I lay still for a moment, letting the adrenaline ebb, then rolled over and stared at the ceiling, tracing cracks that looked like fractured family tree branches. They'd said nothing all night, just a wall of silence after my Christmas Eve declaration. And now their panic found its voice in insistent ringing. I didn't answer. Instead, I reached over, toggled the phone to do not disturb, and sank back into the covers. This was my quiet retaliation. No angry voicemails, no immediate confrontations, just the emptiness they had draped across my heart for years. By 8 a.m., I was downstairs, coffee brewing, the rich aroma promising a rare calm. I opened my laptop to check my accounts. Last night's cancellation of their rent transfer and the freeze on my sister's cards had already triggered alerts to their banks, automated holds and fraud flags that would force them to call their advisors. I watched the confirmation emails pop in, a small but visceral satisfaction flickering through me. These weren't impulsive strikes. They were precise, deliberate boundaries drawn in digital ink. While my family scrambled, I curated silence like a shield, refusing to be baited back into old roles. Mid-morning, my boss pinged. "Are you okay? There's talk at headquarters." I typed a brief reassurance. More coffee than crises. Good. And then I set about my work, losing myself in design layouts and deadlines as if the world beyond my office didn't exist. Around lunchtime, I took a walk through downtown streets lit by winter sun, passing shoppers carrying candles and carolers bundled in scarves. It should have felt festive. Instead, I found peace in the ordinary, the click of my boots on pavement, the crosshatch of shadows under bare trees, a stranger's warm nod as we passed. No pretense, no expectation, just mutual recognition of two lives brushing paths. When I returned home, my inbox held new messages. An extended family group forwarding their own frantic pleas, aunts and uncles urging reconciliation. "We miss you," and a voicemail from my mother. "Please, honey, call us." My finger hovered over the delete button. I paused, imagining her tear-streaked face behind that panicked tone, then let it vanish into the digital void. There would be no half measures today. That evening, I prepared a simple dinner, roasted vegetables and salmon brushed with lemon and dill, and set a place at my small kitchen table. No empty chairs, no decorative plates, just my own reflection in the wine glass. I lifted my fork and tasted freedom, crisp flavors untainted by guilt. As the sun dipped below the skyline, I turned off my phone completely. In the darkness, I heard only my own breathing and the soft hum of the refrigerator. This was quiet retaliation, not a spectacle of rage, but the firm reclaiming of my life's rhythm. No yelling, no public spectacle, just the final unwavering pulse of self-respect. Tonight, I would sleep without the weight of another's expectations on my chest. Tomorrow, I'd wake unmoored from their drama, ready to build a home out of my own boundaries and the silence I had earned. As the city lights faded behind me, I retrieved the crisp white envelope I'd sealed with deliberate care. No flourish, only my typed ultimatum. 48 hours to reconcile every cent they'd taken, or face legal action for fraud and emotional damage. Under the cover of night, I slipped it beneath their front door's wreath, the slender thud echoing like a verdict. I didn't linger for reaction. I drove home through quiet streets, my headlights carving a path through the darkness. Sleep was impossible. My mind raced from last week's humiliation to tonight's decisive stand. At dawn, I awoke to 78 missed calls and a cascade of frantic voicemails. My mother's shaky pleas, my father's rigid indignation, my sister's frantic bursts of, "What have you done?" Yet I let the phone lie silent, letting the envelope speak for me. Inside, the letter had been stark and unadorned. Every canceled rent transfer, every frozen credit card, every hidden group chat insult accounted for, and a firm deadline for repayment. No emotional appeals, just clear terms and the expectation of their collective response. By mid-morning, their panic rippled through banking alerts and family group texts, locked cards, password resets, frantic promises of, "I'll fix this." My boss even pinged me privately, concerned after my father's worried call, only to receive my calm assurance that I was fine and focused. As I poured a second cup of coffee, I realized that my retaliation wasn't about vengeance, but about boundaries finely drawn in digital ink. That afternoon, I drafted an email to relatives who'd rallied behind my mother's public posts. Attached were screenshots of their own betrayal, the messages mocking me as the family ATM, the orchestrated plan to paint me as unstable, the threats to ruin my reputation. Subject line: the truth about our family. The replies came swift: apologies, disbelief, heartfelt regret mixed with shock. For a moment, I allowed myself a flicker of hope that perhaps they'd truly understand. But then my father's voicemail arrived, slow, cold, and menacing. "You think you've won? You have no idea what you've started." I saved it, a reminder that they intended this to be war. I spent the evening organizing every document into a case file for my attorney: bank statements, voicemails, group chat transcripts. When the 48-hour deadline struck, I confirmed my readiness to file suit. And then, 3 hours before cutoff, my phone buzzed with a single group message: "We're transferring the funds." No excuses, no new betrayals, just action. I watched the numbers appear in my account. The full amount, dollar by dollar, until every cent was returned. A quiet victory, yes, but more importantly, proof that respect must be earned and defended. As I stamped "paid in full" on my personal ledger, I understood the true power of a sealed ultimatum. By asking for what's rightful, I reclaimed not just my money, but my dignity, and they, at last, paid the price of their own choices. The morning after the funds cleared, my world held its breath in that rare stillness between storms. No frantic pings, no voicemails, just the hum of my coffee machine and the soft click of my laptop. For the first time in years, I felt unmoored from their demands. I sat at my kitchen table, sipping espresso, staring out the window at sunlight dancing on frost. But peace is fragile. Just before noon, the silence shattered like glass underfoot. An avalanche of notifications, texts from relatives I barely knew, emails from distant aunts, each message tinged with wonder or accusation. "I never knew," one wrote. "I'm so sorry," another. Then my mother's name flashed on my screen. She'd sent a photo of their empty living room, the ledger of returned funds taped to the coffee table. No words, just 2 crying face emojis. My heart paused. Relief? Guilt? I didn't know. Immediately the phone rang. My sister. Her voice wavered. "Are you okay?" I feel sick." She begged forgiveness, promising therapy, promising change. The tremor in her voice was real. I could hear her unspool years of fear and regret. But I'd learned that forgiveness demanded boundaries. I listened, offering none of my own pain, only a calm, "I'm safe now." I hung up before her panic could pull me back into old patterns. Next came Dad, calling from unknown number. He tried to shame me. "You ruined Christmas. You broke us." His tone, once defiant, now cracked under the weight of consequence. I answered with quiet clarity. "I gave you every chance. This is the only language you understood." He sputtered and hung up. Even that fleeting encounter felt like victory, proof that respect had its price. By mid-afternoon, their collective desperation peaked. A final group email from Mom, Dad, and my brother. 3 lines begging reunion, pledging counseling, promising to cease their schemes forever. Attached were scanned receipts, a check for my promotion dinner, reimbursements for rent and credit cards, even a heartfelt note: "Please come home, son." I stared at the screen, feeling a strange churn of longing and triumph. I composed a response that balanced compassion with steel. "I appreciate the effort. I need time and consistency before I consider rebuilding. No apologies, only truth." Within seconds, the room spun into silence again, heavier now, pregnant with possibility. As dusk settled, I poured a glass of whiskey. Toasting myself in the mirror, my reflection looked smaller but stronger, no longer defined by their needs, but by the boundaries I'd carved. Outside, the neighborhood Christmas lights twinkled like witnesses to my rebirth. The phone lay untouched on the counter. In breaking the silence, I had reclaimed my voice, and no one would ever silence it again. From the moment I decided I would no longer stand silent, I knew I had to arm myself with truth. So I tucked my phone into my pocket and retreated to my study, where the glow of my laptop seemed to pulse with purpose. I began by logging into the family cloud storage I'd set up years ago, an archive they'd never bothered to secure, and as the folders snapped open, the history of their deception lay bare in file after file. First came the group chat screenshots, my mother's half-hearted, "Sorry, we'll celebrate another time," text, followed by gleeful images of my brother shining behind his new car, with captions celebrating his milestone accomplishment. There were clips of my sister's whispered asides in our family phone tree. "If he doesn't cave, we'll just tell everyone he stole from Mom's account." And my father's messages to distant relatives, "He's throwing a tantrum, just let him get over it," each one redolent of contempt for my pain. I clicked into the shared rental house spreadsheet and found my name listed as the sole contributor for every month, the columns of figures stark against the pale background. $2,300 here, $1,780 there. Dollars that had kept their lights on and rent paid. Then I unearthed voicemails, saved from frantic days of back and forth. Mom's trembling apology, my brother's sneering threats about calling the bank, and even my father's low, venomous promise. "You have no idea what you've started. I have friends who can make this harder for you." Each recording a testament to how far they'd sunk. As I assembled the evidence into a single folder, I sketched a bare-bones timeline. Invitation sent, family no-shows, celebration of brother's purchase, my financial retaliation, their escalating desperation and duplicity. I found bank statements showing their attempts to reverse the card freezes, log-in attempts time-stamped long after I'd shut them out, and contract letters proving co-signed credit cards I'd had to freeze when my niece's daycare checks bounced. My heart pounded with each new discovery, but a calm settled over me as I dragged every document into a concise PDF labeled Family Financial Abuse, 2024, embedding clear annotations. Exhibit A, group text at 7:45 p.m., December 12. Exhibit B, Instagram post celebrating new car, December 12, 8:22 p.m. Exhibit C, voicemail from father threatening legal action, December 15th, 3:10 p.m. I drafted a measured summary at the front, clarifying that these were not isolated incidents but a pattern of manipulation and entitlement that spanned years. When the dossier was complete, I paused and looked at the wall clock, nearly midnight. I closed my eyes, imagining their surprise when they finally saw these facts laid out in cold, unembellished detail. Without fanfare, I composed an email to every relative who had liked Mom's sympathetic Facebook post, my aunts, uncles, cousins, addressing them as "Dear Family" and attaching the PDF with a subject line simply announcing the truth behind our family's finances. I pressed send and exhaled, the whoosh of data leaving my outbox echoing like a final punctuation. In that moment, I felt both the weight of what I was about to unleash and the liberation of owning my own story. I closed the laptop, stood, and walked to the window. The street below lay quiet, the Christmas lights dimmed to a soft glow. For the first time since I'd begun this journey, I felt ready. Ready for their reaction, ready for the fallout, ready to stand firm on the foundation of evidence I had gathered. By dawn, my inbox was a storm. Notifications flooded in, texts, voicemails, tagged comments on social media, each one a testament to the tsunami I'd unleashed. I sat at my kitchen table, coffee cooling beside me, as my phone buzzed nonstop. First came Aunt Marie's private message. "I had no idea. I'm so sorry I ever doubted you." Then Cousin Laura, who'd once teased me about babying my parents. "Your strength is inspiring. Thank you for sharing the truth." Even distant relatives I hadn't spoken to in years replied, "We stand with you." I scrolled through well wishes and horror at the evidence I'd laid bare, screenshots of blurred family group chats, files proving my father's threats, banking logs of frozen cards, and my brother's own admissions. But it wasn't all support. A wave of anger crashed next, texts from neighbors forwarding social media posts. What kind of monster exposes her own family? A handful of relatives defended my parents, claiming I was too harsh or should have handled this privately. Yet the majority rallied behind me, appalled that a family could weaponize love into financial leverage. At mid-morning, I checked my email to find dozens of automated thank you acknowledgments from local charity groups, offering resources for those suffering elder financial abuse and strained family relationships. Groups I'd impulsively CC'd when I sent my dossier. Their prompt outreach underscored one truth. This was more than personal drama. It was a pattern that affects countless households across America. By lunchtime, my lawyer called. He'd seen the attachments and praised the clarity of my documentation. "You've done everything by the book: contracts, timelines, witness statements. If they challenge you, you'll prevail." His calm confidence steadied me as I realized the scale of what lay ahead. Meanwhile, my phone buzzed again, an urgent video call from my manager. He assured me my job was safe and that my openness about family hardship had sparked important conversations in our workplace about boundaries and mental health. Policies would soon be reviewed to protect employees from domestic financial coercion. I felt a surge of pride. My pain was catalyzing change beyond my own life. But the day's crescendo arrived with the press. A local reporter, tipped by one of my relatives, knocked on my door, camera crew in tow. They wanted to hear my story on camera. I paused, heart racing, and then agreed. On one condition: anonymity for my family members to protect them from public shaming. On camera, I spoke quietly, my voice clear. Family is about respect and mutual support. Mine used me until I had nothing left to give. Today I'm reclaiming my dignity and helping others see that love shouldn't cost you your savings or your sanity. The crew's nods and the reporter's respectful handshake afterward left me feeling empowered rather than exposed. That evening, I sat alone on my balcony, city lights flickering below. The storm of messages had quieted to a few lingering pings, some of gratitude, others of disappointment. I closed my eyes and let the night air wash over me. In that moment of calm, I realized the public reckoning was more than revenge or restitution. It was a crossroads. I'd illuminated a truth hidden behind closed doors, given voice to the silent provider, and invited my community to join me in redefining what family really means. And as the last message pinged, my father's number left on silent, I knew tomorrow would bring another chapter. But tonight, under the glow of street lamps and stars, I felt a profound peace. My story was out. The reckoning had begun, and I was finally free to write whatever came next. In the hush that followed my on-camera statement, something shifted deep inside me, an unburdening so profound I felt tears prickle my eyes, not of pain, but of relief. All those years of silent sacrifices, of empty plates and dashed hopes, had led to this moment when my voice finally met an audience ready to listen. I thought back to the little boy who once believed family meant unconditional love. Now I knew that true love comes wrapped in respect, not in debt or demands. As the city lights twinkled below, I felt the weight of shame lift, replaced by a quiet pride that I'd reclaim my dignity, and, in doing so, shone a light for countless others suffering in secret. Tonight, I choose myself, my health, my finances, my peace. And I'm inviting you, wherever you are, whatever your age, to do the same. If you've ever felt taken for granted, if you've ever been the bank instead of the beloved child, partner, or friend, know this: your worth isn't measured in dollars or deeds. It's measured in the courage to draw a boundary, to say enough, and to stand up for yourself. So here's my call to you. Share your story in the comments. Tell us how you found the strength to protect yourself, or what keeps you from speaking up. If you're not ready, that's okay. Just like this video, and subscribe for more stories of resilience and respect, and pass it on to someone who needs to hear it. Because every time we break our silence, we remind each other that family shouldn't cost our self-respect. Let's keep this conversation alive. Tag a friend, share the video, and together, let's redefine what it means to truly belong.